Welcome to Flam Flam Sports. My name is Richard Harris, and let's talk sports. Welcome back to Flam Flam Sports. My name is Richard Harris. The second part of the discussion is now the National League. Last year, the New York Mets shocked the world. They were one of the worst offensive teams going into the month of August. They picked up Yoenis Cespedes at the trade deadline, and he basically turned into Manny Ramirez in terms of what Manny's impact was on the Dodgers when Manny went to the Dodgers. Smacking 17 home runs, just great defense, just being the superstar player that he could be. The pitchers got stronger, better, and they made it to the World Series, shocking the Dodgers and the Cubs en route to a World Series performance that they shouldn't hang their heads. They did kind of choke away the Game 5. Harvey was brilliant for 8 innings. I won't second guess him being allowed to pitch the 9th inning because I want him to pitch the 9th inning, and unfortunately it didn't work out. Unlike the American League, the National League this year, for lack of a better word, is probably going to be as crazy, convoluted scramble, more so than the American League. The American League, it's all about the Royals. If the Royals play like the Royals can play, they're going back to the World Series. The National League has not a lot of great teams. A lot of teams that think they have built the formula to get to the World Series. And then you have a team like the Dodgers. So let's talk about the divisions. First, the NL West. The Dodgers had the premier rotation in baseball with Greinke, with Kershaw. And then Greinke's now a Diamondback. So now it's just Kershaw. They got a couple Korean guys who supposedly are good. They have so many questions in their starting rotation right now. We don't know who they got going out there this season. They had Scott Kazmir. He's come into play this recently in preseason. He's been okay. But the Dodgers have an American League team. They got a new manager. They have still the problem with 100 outfielders with Ethier, with Puig, with Peterson, with Crawford. And the funny thing is, they need all those guys because no one ever stays healthy. And we all sit back and wonder what kind of team the Dodgers could be if they were healthy. And being that Vin may not come back after this year, I believe he said this is his final season, the Dodgers are going to go after a world championship like you would not believe. And with an offense that they have, they could score runs with any team in either league. They got the kid Seager is going to be here a whole season. Like I already mentioned, Peterson, who burnt out last year after hitting all those home runs in the first half of the season. He gets to now play a whole season. Puig didn't play at all last year, it seemed. Adrian Gonzalez is still Adrian Gonzalez. Yes, they lost Rollins. Utley is a little bit older, but he's still going to get some games out there. They have an interesting team. And they're in a division where San Francisco offensively is okay. They're above average. Starting pitching, San Francisco is ridiculous. They got Smarja, they got Bumgarner, Kane. They got like an overabundance of arms. But the questions, for them is how good their bullpen's going to perform. Hunter Pence goes down at least once a season. Like, their lineup is not as stout as the Dodgers, and it becomes a pitching versus hitting type scenario. And that's what San Francisco does every other year. Buster Posey is the best catcher this side of Yachty in the game, and he basically calls a great game every other year, and they end up back in the World Series. It's just that every other year. We'll see what happens. The Diamondbacks can score runs with anybody. They have my man playing first base. I'll just remember his name as Paulie. He can do it all at first base. They got Greinke now as an ace. They got weapons. But they are their own worst enemy. They don't have a bullpen yet. They're still building a core of a team. They'll be fine next year. This year is a learning experience for them. The Padres last year made 100 million moves. They thought bringing in Matt Kemp and Upton that they were going to be something. And instead they ended up dumping everybody before it was all said and done. Well, Kemp is still there. They still have a good farm system of good players to build from. They just don't have the horses to compete. Pitching is young, untested. They all throw the same way. They all throw hard. Got to have some diversity in that. In fact, they're all really not starters. They're all like bullpen guys being forced to start. Padres deserve better fate, folks. And hopefully in 2 years, they'll get it. The Central, to me, is the best division in all of sports. Because you got 3 teams that are beasts, a 4th team that can be a beast, and a 5th team that not going anywhere in the Brewers. You start out with the team that everyone thinks is going to go to the World Series. This is the Cubs. The Cubs have all this young, sick talent that can hit, that can defend, that can do it all. Rizzo, Barney, just to name 2. They got the Cy Young Award winner, and they got John Lester. They have what it takes to be a championship team, good manager. Barney, they just can do it all. But they are the Cubs. And as you saw it happen against the Mets, they can be pitched to. The Cardinals, people think the Cardinals are going to start to fade away. They lost Hayward to the Cubs. Wainwright's back, but is he back? They had the unfortunate death last year of the superstar talent that was supposed to be the face of the franchise. Like, they have a lot of questions. Molina often hurt. Matt Holliday breaks down, but he's still great. John Jay's still... they have a lot of players that they just play. They don't care, make no excuses. And that's why people always like the Cardinals. Because the Cardinals always find a way to win. Pitching, they bring up guys you never heard of. They bring up guys who just throw strikes. The bullpen, the guys throw 100 miles an hour. They can battle you any which way you want to. They make you scratch your head often. They got the big boy over at first base. They have the tools to win. They're like the Spurs of baseball. They're not great players individually, but as a team, they're pretty hard to beat. And you got the Pirates, are the team that many people feel this is their year to make a huge, huge move with with McCutchen and the big boy, what's his name, Cole on the mound. The pitching staff is awesome. The bullpen is awesome. They play unreal defense. They got hitters in every spot that can deliver. I mean, they have everything. What they lack, they just don't have, it's not consistent. And what I mean by that is, they win a lot of games. They win 50, 60, they win 55, 60% of their games. But, which is really good in baseball. But they have no one that scares you, so you're not intimidated by the Pirates. You kind of run them over. But they've been to the playoffs the last 3 years, lost in the first round game the last couple of years. And this year they are on a mission to get beyond that playoff game, that play-in game, and actually compete in a series against somebody. Isn't that crazy? The Reds have Votto still. They still have Bruce. They have so much offensive talent. They got pitchers who on occasion can do nasty stuff. Chapman's gone. This team is just laying in the weeds. They want you to think that they're stink, and then all of a sudden they come out and they light you up like a Christmas tree. Their just biggest problem is inconsistency, and more so than anybody else, because they got named players. They got players that everybody knows about. They just are either hurt all the time or just not doing the job when it's necessary. And then the Brewers, Ryan Braun is the only person worth watching on that squad. But they still can do some damage. I mean, they got really nothing in terms of starting pitching or the bullpen. But you have a superstar player on your team, you never know. You ride his coattails. And then the National League East, this is not a strong East as it has been in years past. The Mets and Nationals are the teams to beat. The Braves and the Phillies. And the Marlins. Well, the Marlins is a team laying in the weeds as well. Mattingly takes over the Marlins. Stanton, can he be healthy for a whole season? He might hit 60 home runs. D. Gordon had a breakout year. Practically hitting well over 300, stealing bases, triples. He just does it all. They got my boy Jose Fernandez, who could throw strikes, who is as good as any pitcher in baseball. But again, they're still a player away from really making some noise. They like their chances going up against the Mets and the Nationals because, they can pitch with them. But the reality is, it's just inconsistency, and that's why they're not going to go very far. But the Nationals were the biggest disappointment in baseball last year. Everybody and their cousin, picked the Nationals to go to the World Series. Bryce Harper won the MVP. But again, this team had so many injuries, so inconsistent. They fighting each other on the sidelines. It's just mind-boggling how a team with all that talent, Desmond, he was hurt a lot. Worth, he was hurt a lot. It was like Bryce Harper versus the National League, and he almost got it done, but in September he just fell off a little bit. The team fell off a little bit, and the Mets just surged right past him to take the division. I think this is not a good Mets team. I don't think it's a great Mets team. I think it's a good Mets team. They still have a lot of holes. Daniel Murphy is now a National, which is kind of funny. But they have enough pitching, and I think they're going to try to be of the formula of the Royals and of the Giants, where they're just going to think their pitching is going to be good enough, and they're going to play a lot of 4-2, 4-3, 3-2, 3-1 baseball games, and then hope that David Wright can be healthy all year long, as well as Cespedes, as well as Lucas Duda and the rest. They just hope to have a healthy season. and hope to be able to rise to the top when it's time. Make a trade at the deadline and take it from there. Just off the top of my head, I'd love to see what we had last year with the Dodgers and the Mets playing in the postseason. We'll see if we can make that a reality. But I'm just one man thinking.